Pope Francis has arrived in Singapore for a 3-day visit. It is the last stop of his 4-nation tour of the Asia-Pacific and the first visit to the country for the 87-year-old head of the Catholic Church. It is also only the second by a pope since John Paul II's 5-hour-long stop way back in 1986. Charlene Sia with more.
A dance by children from different races. This was Pope Francis's first glimpse into Singapore's social fabric. At Changi Airport's VIP complex, Culture, Community and Youth Minister Edwin Tong was the first to shake hands with the Pope, as well as Singapore's non-resident ambassador to the Vatican, Janet Ang. Representatives from the Foreign Affairs Ministry and Archdiocese were also present, led by Archbishop William Goh.
And lots of excitement outside the airport as thousands of volunteers gather to welcome the Pope in his first ever visit to Singapore. The excitement is palpable in the air, and all these volunteers have come from various Catholic parishes all across the island.
After waiting nearly an hour in sun and rain, the anticipated moment arrived. The Pope rode down the path, greeting followers who were waving Singapore and Vatican flags. It was an experience many say will remain in their hearts for a long time.
I feel so blessed. Sister, what do you feel?
Very blessed because it's a historic, Pope's historic visit to Singapore.
I'm so excited to come here, but I never thought we can see him this distance. I feel like I'm so blessed right now, and I'm so happy.
It's just like a miracle. It'll never happen, this kind of miracle again in my whole life. Yeah, it was the best day ever. I love Pope. We all love Pope. We're all in one together. Yeah, thank you, Singapore. Thank you, Pope Francisco. Yeah, we love you. God bless you. Diva, diva, papa.
The Pope's next stop was St. Francis Xavier Retreat Centre for a private meeting. Dozens lined the streets of the residential neighbourhood, and not even pouring rain could stop them, young and old eager to catch a glimpse of the Pope.
We are very, very blessed and very happy to have this opportunity to actually see him in the flesh, because the only other time would be probably to travel all the way to the Vatican. Is it worth it?
Yes. I'm not a Catholic. I just wanted to get a glimpse of this moment whereby when the Pope comes, his beacon, actually his hope for peace, and how he does his diplomatic duties as a priest. But trying to negotiate peace and hope in the world is certainly inspiring.
Thousands have been preparing for months for a highlight of Pope Francis's visit, Mass at the National Stadium. 50,000 people are expected to attend.
And for more analysis on the Pope's visit, I'm now joined by Professor Chan Heng Chee, Ambassador at Large at the Foreign Affairs Ministry. She's also SUTD Honorary Professor at the Lee Kuan Yew Centre for Innovative Cities. And also with us is Dr Paul Hedges, Professor of Interreligious Studies at the Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Professor Chan, Dr Hedges, welcome to Singapore tonight. Dr Hedges, perhaps we can start with you. What does the Pope's visit mean for multicultural, multi-religious Singapore, especially given our diverse religious makeup in comparison with the other 3 countries on this tour?
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Shahida, for that excellent question to start with. We've obviously seen in the clip you've just shown us how sort of the multicultural has been put on display to the Pope here. And of course, a few years back, the Pew Research Centre delivered their sort of assessment that Singapore was the most multi-religious country, the most religiously diverse country in the world. So this, I think, is something that Singapore will want to showcase. Of course, the whole of Southeast Asia has this diversity. And it's notable that amongst these 4 countries that the Pope is visiting, only one of them, Timor-Leste, has a Catholic majority. And I think this is part of the Pope's intention in coming to these countries. It's not just to reach out to places where sort of there's a Catholic majority, but to let sort of all Catholics feel that they're part of the global family of his church, and that they're included within this. And of course, in Singapore, there's a lot of sort of diversity, both sort of racial diversity, cultural diversity, religious sort of diversity here. And this is something that I think the Pope sort of values. He doesn't, of course, necessarily want everybody to be a Catholic. That's not part of the mission of the church, as he would understand evangelism today. It's to live the good life. And as he sees people here living in harmony with each other, I'm sure this will be sort of a great inspiration to him, as well, of course, a great inspiration to Catholics here, as they see the Pope, as of course we've heard again in those interviews that you've done.
And this marks the first papal visit to Singapore since 1986. That's 5 years after Singapore officially established diplomatic relations with the Vatican. Professor Chan, what is the significance of a state visit of this scale? Are we seeing a change in the diplomatic relations between both sides?
Well, this is a very significant visit by the Pope, not just to Singapore, but to Southeast Asia. It's Pope Francis's first visit to Southeast Asia, Indonesia, East Timor, Papua New Guinea on the periphery, and Singapore. So it is significant. Now, the Pope is a world figure. He is, of course, head of the Catholic Church, 1.3 billion Catholics. But he is a world figure, and he is a moral voice today in these troubled times. The Pope pronounces on many things. In his January address, state address, which he delivers every year, he touches on world problems, wars, humanitarian crisis, country tragedies, and issues such as climate change, non-proliferation. So he is, in fact, a world leader and someone that one should listen to. I was quite struck, for instance, in his January address, I saw that he said he was concerned with escalating crises in the world, and that he was concerned that World War III seemed to be fought piecemeal with so many conflicts growing. So that startled me a bit, but it shows he's frank, he has a view. And the Pope is, in fact, a very significant figure. So for Singapore, that's important, to show respect to this world leader and this moral voice. Now, you asked a question whether it means that it's a new step in our diplomatic relations with the Vatican. The Vatican City, the Pope, in fact, presides over, is head of this spiritual state. It is also a sovereign state. But Singapore's relationship with the Vatican, established in 1981, is a relationship which is state to state, because the Vatican has other envoys, in fact, as resident embassies in Rome, in the Vatican City. So you find that it plays a spiritual role and yet a state role. But it's a different kind of state. It's more a spiritual state. And the relationship between Singapore and the Vatican City, because of the way we deal with religion, the way we allow religions to be practiced, shows that there's not really an issue between us. So in terms of stepping up the relationship, it is not as if it is stepping up a relationship and signing a comprehensive strategic agreement with, say, Australia or, Japan or whatever. It is actually maintaining that relationship. And I think that's what we do. And we really want to show, this very respected world figure and moral voice.
So he is this moral voice, a very important moral voice, Professor Chan, in today's volatile world. Dr. Hedges, perhaps we can bring you into the conversation as well. Pope Francis came with a message of hope, and interreligious harmony has been a key theme throughout his tour. What can be expected from the government, interreligious or interfaith organizations, and the Archdiocese in building on momentum of this visit, especially in engaging various communities in Singapore?
So I think it's important to stress that this interreligious dialogue is not just a feature of the Pope's visit here in Southeast Asia, this has been a key part of his work as the Pope in his role as the leader of sort of all the world sort of Catholics. Ever since he's become the Pope, he's wanted to strengthen interreligious relations. And I think we can see in his first stop in Jakarta, where he meets with very important sort of imam there in the largest sort of mosque in the region. And of course, on his last day here in Singapore, he's engaging with youths from many different sort of communities, not just Catholics, at the Catholic Junior College. So sort of, if you like, interreligious dialogue starts and ends his entire tour within this region, which I think sort of shows us this centrality of it. Now, you asked about sort of what the local Catholics are going to do in terms of this. And that's an excellent question. Of course, I don't think it's just going to be about Singapore. There's a much bigger sort of regional question to this as well, with both sort of Christian Muslim sort of relations sort of highlighted in what he's doing in Indonesia, as well as, if you like, sort of this wide sort of dialogue in Singapore. And of course, he's actually going to be meeting sort of youth leaders, not just again talking to sort of the important sort of figures here. So I think this is going to be a great inspiration at the grassroots in particular. So when again we talk about sort of the Catholic Church, yes, certainly sort of the message that's been coming out of the Vatican since at least the 1960s, the Second Vatican Council. They gave this document Nostra Aetate, which the Cardinal in Singapore, William Goh, has spoken about many times and many platforms, this sort of impetus towards dialogue within the church.
Dr. Hedges, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I'm afraid we are running out of time here. Professor Chan, if we could get your thoughts very quickly, are there broader political implications of this visit for Singapore's standing and influence on the global stage?
I think that the Pope is coming to Singapore shows that, in fact, Singapore emphasizes interreligious dialogue and understanding, which the Pope believes in and is promoting. So really, coming here, he can highlight this, he can enter into this dialogue. And I think that is important for Singapore. I believe this visit is conducted because we believe the Pope is a very important, as I said, moral figure and authority. It is not, I think, much less about what will Singapore get out of it, It certainly coincides with our emphasis on interreligious harmony, but the Pope, he's the Pope.
All right, Professor Chan, thank you very much for speaking with us. That was Professor Chan Heng Chee from the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the Lee Kuan Yew Centre for Innovative Cities, and Dr. Paul Hedges from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. We appreciate your perspectives. Thank you.